What's up everyone, David here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a world premiere. Once again, first on MixBus TV, the new Drawmer 1976 multiband saturator and widener by Softube. And I couldn't be happier about two things. One, that there's a plug-in version of one of my favorite units ever. The 1976 multiband saturator is a dirty little secret. It's such a versatile, great sounding unit, and if you follow me, you know, if you have any of my mixing courses, I use it on all my mixes almost, and it can go anywhere because it's so versatile. And two, that the company making this plugin is Softube, one of my favorites. Besides the Console One system, which is my main mixing system, I think they are one of the best companies out there for analog emulation. And yes, we are going to compare the plugin versus the hardware in this video. So without further ado, let's take a look at it. Hello everyone, welcome back to MixBus TV. Hope you guys are having a great day. Before we start, as usual, check the info box down below for free plugin special discounts and offers, and of course the link to the Drawmer 1976 by Softube. If you want to book mix and mastering with me, go to the website mixbustv.com. In there you will also find all the mix and mastering courses, and if you want to access the exclusive library of in-depth mix and mastering videos here on YouTube, click the join button, become a MixBus TV member, get all the perks, and if the videos are helping you, please consider using the super thanks or grab some merch. Let's take a look at the plugin. All right, here's the GUI, which is of course resizable, first thing, which I love. As usual, Softube doesn't stop at emulating the hardware as is, but it adds a bunch of very welcome extra features that in this particular plugin I find extremely useful, and now I wish the hardware had them. And not surprisingly at all, I think Softube nailed this one, and we'll hear the comparison later on in the video. But fun fact, and this might be a reason as to why this particular plugin seems to hit the mark that well, the 1976 started its life as a software product, part of the Drawmer DC2476. So it was software before becoming an actual analog hardware unit, and now we are full circle with the Softube version. Let's take a look at the controls first that are exactly on the hardware unit. We have a global input knob, global output knob, and then we have the 3 bands of saturation and stereo manipulation. For each one, we have a saturate knob, a stereo mono knob, a level, and then we have the 2 crossover knobs, one separating the low band from the mid band and one separating the mid band from the high band. For each band we have a bypass, a mute button, and of course we have the mono check next to the output. But Softube, like I said, added extra features. One, low cut and high cut filters, which I really wish they were on the hardware. Then we have an extended meter for left and right and mid side, one in green, one in blue. Then we have a wet dry knob, which again, I wish there was in the hardware version. And then we have saturation meter in here at the bottom for each band to visually monitor how much saturation is being applied to each band, which is again, very, very cool. Finally, we have 2 different width mode, an analog and a digital mode. I'm gonna repeat myself for a second because the 1976 really is one of the most fun to use unit that I have in my studio, and you know I have a lot of gear. You can find so many uses for this machine. It can literally end up being anywhere because you can always find a use for this unit. So much so that I have to save it, so to speak, especially when I have a high track count mix, and decide where I want to put it because I only have one. Now with the plugin, I don't really have this problem anymore because on certain material and certain settings, I want to say they sound indistinguishable. And of course, analog is different than software, so some settings, some material, there's gonna be some differences. The controls are pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna explain you what Saturate does, it says on the tin, but I wanna say one thing. The stereo width control of this unit is very different from any other stereo widener that you will hear or have heard. And it will be apparent right away. It's more a special effect when you turn it to wide, to have the material go outside of the speakers and almost take it out of the center channel to have this special effects and larger than life sound, which is not necessarily gonna be mono compatible, but this is not something that you care about when you use this thing. You want a special effects for stereo. Without further ado, I say let's compare it to the hardware right away, because usually this is what everybody wants to see, and then we'll test the plugin as its own thing on different material, because I already have a couple of tracks prepared and a couple of settings prepared. All right, as you can see from the plugin and the hardware right here, I perfectly matched the settings, right? The only thing that is different is the input level and the output level, because as many times happens with analog emulation, the general gain staging is not the same. So it appears in this case that the plugin has a higher headroom than the hardware. So I had to push the input more to match the amount of saturation done by the hardware with the same material. Let's hear it. I'm gonna start with the hardware and I'm gonna switch to the plugin. Pay attention to the screen. All right, I think we can all agree right out of the gate with this first example that they kind of nailed the sound. The saturation is pretty spot on, the sound is there, everything is there. There is one small difference and I'm gonna talk about it in a minute, but I want you to pay attention to something. The saturate knob on my low band, which is very pushed on both the hardware and the plugin, of course. That's not by accident, that is by design. And the reason is because usually plugins tend to struggle with low end and saturation. It tends to fold, it kind of chokes, it loses power. In this case, it's pretty spot on. And so this one was one of the first tests that I wanted to do because I really like the low end saturation on the hardware. I wanted to see how close the plugin was because I knew that the mid-band and the high-end is somewhat easier, stress on somewhat. But I want to demonstrate this to you. I'm going to back off the low-end saturation to 3, and I'm going to do the same on the hardware, and then turn it back on so you can hear that they literally break in the same way at the same point. Again, once you matched the gain staging, which is different. So I'm going to start with the hardware in bypass, and then we go hardware, turn the knob, go to the plugin, turn the knob. All right, so it literally breaks in the same way, okay? Now, there is the slight difference that I was talking about at the beginning, and that, if you notice, is the top end. This is not a matter of better or worse, right? This is a matter of what you need and taste. In some cases, I will use the plugin. In some other cases, I will use the hardware because of this slight difference. The difference that you hear, and granted that, mind you, the 1976 doesn't have dented pots or switches. They are fully variable switches. So even if I do my best to match them to the exact same spot, they are fully variable, okay? So there is a degree of tolerance when moving the knobs. Like this, I can click it to 0. The hardware, I have to look at it, and you know, there's tolerance in potentiometers and stuff like that. So that might also be the difference, but I don't really think it's that, and it's irrelevant. The difference that you hear is in the transient response and the detail. Same settings, same material. The plugin seems a little more detailed, especially at the top end, right? It's a little faster on the transient, while the hardware kind of shaves, I don't even want to use the word shave the top end because it's such a small difference. It's more on how fast the transient response is and less the frequency response, right? But if you pay attention to it, that's the difference that I feel. And I also feel a slight difference in the stereo field, which again, could totally be knob tolerance, because even the slightest movement on the stereo knobs of the hardware will change the stereo image enough to give us a difference, okay? That's a second example. I made a hardware compare settings, which is this one, pretty similar, but on different material. When I push it a little more, the mid-range and the top end, and I also did a little bit of stereo manipulation towards the wide on high and mid-band, and towards the mono on the low end. So let's hear this. right? It's really hard to tell which one is which. Now I know the hardware beyond well, so I can recognize that tone, like I said, in the top end is a little rounder, a little slower on the transient, so to speak, while the plugin is a little more sharp and in your face, which again, at this point is not a matter of better or worse, it's a matter of what do you want for that track on that specific mix. I think based on these two examples, Softube nailed the unit, and I'm already happy that this thing exists. But now let's abandon the comparison with the hardware and let's play with the plugin so I can show you many of the uses that you can have for this thing. Now, people ask me all the time, can you use the 1976 on the 2-bus? And while, yes, you technically can, I personally don't use it on the 2-bus, even though I reiterate how much I love this unit, simply because, and this comes from being spoiled and having so many pieces of gear, it doesn't have the tinted knobs, and especially for the stereo manipulation part, it makes me nervous not to have a 0 where I know I'm certain the stereo image is not being manipulated at all. So that's kind of the reason because I don't use it on the 2-bus. But the plugin though, it's different because now I have ultra precise control. This is to say, let's try it on a full mix because there's absolutely no reason as to why you couldn't use it, especially when you have this degree of control. So I'm gonna back off the gain, which was higher for the hardware comparison, and we're gonna try it on a full mix. I don't even need to go further than this. It's funny because all the differences that there are between the hardware and the plugin, I almost want to say they are slightly in favor of the plugin. Like the fact that I can be so precise and be sure that the stereo information is not touched, and I can be very precise with the controls. And now I have a wet dry function, which I don't have on the hardware, and has 0 phase red flag, so I can push more saturation, especially on the mid and the high band, and then mix in with the dry signal. This thing is, I'm so happy it exists. But let me show you really quick the stereo knob, because like I said, this is not like 90% of the stereo wideners out there. They just usually raise the level at the sides. It works very, very differently. And this is another thing that it sounds exactly like the hardware. This, I want to say weird, but not in a negative way, stereo widening effect. Listen to it. Okay, so I promise you I could put the camera back on. The hardware sounds exactly the same, has the exact same effect, all right? And that's why you would not want this type of widening on the full mix, okay? Because you can clearly hear it puts the material outside of the speakers, which is a really cool effect, not for a full mix though. For synths, electric guitars, we're gonna try on it. Returns of reverb, like effects, delays. That's awesome, not on a full mix. That's why I'm always scared. But with the plugin now, I can actually even use it on a 2-bus, and it's great. Let's do one more mix before going to individual tracks.
Catch karate blows like Johnny Bones. They be rushing to get your body home. Rocky fold, lock and load. It's off at the top of your dome like artichokes. These artists choke. Can't stand this kind of smoke. Adios. Que pasa, nasa, vámonos. Ya toca lado. I know y'all grinding dominoes. Y'all need to stop it and go stocking or go pop the flow. Rapido. I'm a capo. Do tutti capi. You and I. Hey, yo, face. Let's put the heat on. These weak miles with them key props. Beat on these peons. peons. Still I see him holding up peace signs. Y'all better be wise and behave, cause these guys will be keeping stinging your retards like fucking with a beehive.
You never be able to see, how can y'all deny? Shit, I was rhyming the beats when y'all were like knee high. Brody called me and he like, you got an hour of free time? I'm like, find me a beat and I'll probably body it each line.
All right, so you heard the mid-range and especially the high band, two ranges where I usually push the saturation a lot, and it totally works in place of EQ because the material is richer. That's why now we have the new wave of EQ/saturators, because we figured out that we can use saturation instead of EQ or with EQ, and in many cases is better. This is kind of the, I want to say the opposite. If things like the 1971 is at EQ with saturation, this can be seen like a multiband saturation with EQ. Why? Because you have a level for each band. So just like a multiband compressor, you can use the EQ to rebalance the mix, right?
Yo, snotty nose, catch karate blows like Johnny Bones. They be rushing to get your body home. Rocky fold, lock and load, it's off at the top of your dome like artichokes. These artists choke, can't stand this kind of smoke. Adios.
Que pasa, nasa, vámonos. Ya toca lado, I know y'all grinding dominoes. Y'all need to stop it and go stock it or go pop the flow. Rapido, I'm a capo, do tutti capi. You are now.
Hey yo, face, let's put the heat on. These weak mouths with them key rhymes. Beat on these peons, still I see him holding up peace signs. Y'all better be wise and be.
And how well it works, right? It opens up the mix so effortlessly, and again, without eating nominal level, right? So we gain headroom using it this way, and you saw me pushing it all the way to 10. This thing doesn't scratch or doesn't get brushed. One of my favorite uses for this is electric guitars. God, that makes me smile. You hear it, right? Like, it's just this pushed sound. I'm level matching my ear. I don't even care. We're probably our lower nominal level than with it. I just don't care at this point. It sounds so good that I don't even need to do that. The filters, especially in cases like this, I wish I had them on the hardware. Totally love that they put the filters here. This thing is another home run. I want to do synth really quick. This is cool. I mean, you can probably tell I'm genuinely happy when messing with the plugin because now I have so many of one of my favorite hardware unit. And something that I want you to notice, while when we turn the stereo with, we kind of have this shift in energy. So some energy is taken away from the center channel and put on the side. We have the opposite when we go towards the mono. The center channel gets stronger. So also see this for this type of application. I'm gonna push the low band towards the mono all the way so you can hear how it rises in volume. And also if you wanna compensate a little bit for the center channel, like for example on the mids, you can boost the level of the band itself and you kind of rebalance. It's nice to play with this control in this perspective. right? It's clear as day, right? So as we turn the stereo knob towards the mono, there is a rising level in the center channel, in this case on the low end, right? So keep that in mind because it's another tool for you to manipulate your audio. This thing is killer on 808 and synth basses, so let's try that. Okay, something that you can do, you can bypass the saturation altogether in the low band and put the crossover all the way down and keep the deep low end clean and saturate the mid-range as your punch chest part of the 808. All right, so you have the sub-range clean and you still get that mid-range saturation that helps 808 cut through small speakers. And if we go into high energy territory like EDM or anything electronic, industrial, this thing is an absolute weapon. Pretty cool. And this was just an example. Obviously, you don't have to put one on every track like I did, but it's just to show you how versatile this thing is. And you can do acoustic instruments as well. The saturation of the 76, it kind of molds and fits pretty much everything you throw at it. It's key, of course, to experiment with the crossovers and the different amount of saturation between bands so you can hear how they interact with each other. But this is a thing that does not have a learning curve at all. Just like the 1973 is one of the most immediate, intuitive, and easy to use multi-band compressor in the case of the 73, and in the case of the 76 Saturator. And I think this is it. I don't think I need to say anything else. You can probably see how happy I am about the new Drawmer 1976 multi-band Saturator and stereo widener by Softube plugin. The link is going to be in the info box down below. If you like the video, guys, please don't forget to leave a like. Let me know in the comment down below what you think. Let me know if you have questions. I'll do my best to respond. If you want to book mix and mastering with me, mixbusstv.com. In there, you will also find all the premium mix and mastering courses. If you want to access the exclusive library of in-depth mix and mastering videos here on YouTube, click the join button, become a MixBustTV member, get all the perks. If the videos are helping you, please consider using the super thanks or grab some merch. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.